What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome to this devotional series. We are walking you through parts of the Old Testament and just showing you little glimpses of Jesus. We said that in the Old Testament, Christ is kind of concealed, but in the New Testament, it's fully revealed. So in the Old Testament, these little moments where you catch a glimpse of Jesus, and one of them is again, it's so big and it's so obvious once you hear Jesus talk about it. But back when it was happening, they weren't quite sure yet. And so what happened was we were referencing the story yesterday of how the Israelites, when they came out of Egypt, they were wandering around in the desert. And so as they're wandering around in the desert, they need food. And again, it's desert, so there's not an ample supply of food everywhere. There's no Costco. And so God gives them something called manna. And so it was this substance, they weren't even sure what it was, but they knew they could grind it up and do certain things with it and make food out of it. And so that's what God provided for them. And then, of course, in the New Testament, Jesus points back to that and says, do you see that? It was just a little glimpse of me. Because he goes on to say these words. Now, this is in John chapter 6, and he says this. He goes, I am the bread of life. He goes, your ancestors, they ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, and anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. So again, every morning, these Jews, these Israelites would wake up, and there was just stuff on the ground that they could turn into food. It was called manna. And he was basically just saying, hey, the way that God provided for Israel in their time of need, I want you to know that I am the ultimate provision. They ate that food and still died. I'm telling you, you can come to me and you will live forever. Now, here's the difference between the temporary manna that the Jews had in the Old Testament and what is called the eternal fulfillment in Jesus. This is the first one, is that the manna that they had met a physical need, but Jesus goes beyond that and meets all needs. The manna, if you remember, was temporary. It was only for one day, and if you tried to store it, it would spoil, except on Friday you could get two, right? Because you had to have one for the Sabbath because you didn't want to work on the Sabbath, right? And so that one wouldn't spoil. But it was temporary. What Jesus provides is eternal, right? The manna, that was only for the Israelites. But in Jesus, you have it fulfilled for the whole world. This manna that came down to them for really just, it was about 30, 40 years that they were in the wilderness, right? In terms of like how long it was. I think it was probably about 38 years is what scholars estimate that by the time they got into the wilderness and they needed food and how long they ate it. And so, but we're talking about Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment from Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden till this point in history today. Like he's got it all covered. And then the other thing is that when you think about it, there was no cost. The manna just showed up every morning to the Jews. It just was sitting. It didn't cost them anything. The difference in Jesus is that it cost him his life. But in doing so, he didn't just become the bread that satisfied your soul for a little bit of time. It was the bread of life who has the ability to satisfy your soul eternally. And that's the big thing I want you to key in on today is that you and I have a habit of reaching for temporary things, of really giving our whole lives, devoting our whole lives to chasing temporary things. And in doing so, I think we're going to get to the end of our life and be like, what were we doing? Why did we put so much time on that? Why did I worry so much about that? Why did I get so upset about this thing? That wasn't the big picture thing. And so I think we're going to one day regret maybe how much time we spent focusing on manna that was temporary versus the divine in Jesus that is eternal. And so, once again, Jesus is our provision, whatever it is, the longing of your soul. Because I think, again, a lot of us go through life eating a bunch of stuff, eating a bunch of food, eating a bunch of manna, some stuff, and we can kind of feel full, but never fully satisfied. And I don't know about you, but in my life, I've tried a lot of different things and I found out it just doesn't really work. It gives me temporary satisfaction, but it doesn't actually fulfill the longing of my soul. That is something that only Jesus can do. And so I just want to encourage you today that Jesus wants to be your provider in every aspect of your life. Can I get a good gospel amen? Church, I love you so much. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow.